So, hello everyone. I wanted to get the story out as soon as possible concerning this new Doge committee. This is Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I wanted to give you some updates on what has been exposed since President-elect Donald Trump has put these two guys together to be an outside source of information for, in a way, economically draining the swamp. So I got this from the Epic Times. It says Senate Doge Caucus Chair outlines blueprint to weed out government waste. Senator Joni Ernst pitched a proposal to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to cut $1 trillion in government spending. The new chair of the Senate Department of Government Efficiency, better known as Doge, the caucus has identified about $1 trillion in potential federal spending cuts. In a letter sent on Monday to Doge advisors Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, Senator Joni Ernst, a Republican from Iowa, outlined her instruction manual of ways to eliminate government waste. My question is, what's been going on all these other years concerning the government waste? But we'll continue on. With $3 billion of interest being added to our national debt every day, the longer we delay tackling the problem, the further away the finish line gets, Ernst wrote in her letter. To give you a head start, there are $1 trillion worth of ideas for trimming the fat and reducing red ink. Now, I'm starting to get a little bit hot about this, but we'll move forward. Ernst pointed out that the cost of maintaining and leasing government buildings cost $8 billion every year. She noted that the federal workforce still works remotely. Not a single headquarters of a major government agency or department in the nation capital is even half full. So Washington is a ghost town, a whole bunch of people working at home. And what are they really doing at home? Ernst targeted the Internal Revenue Service in her blueprint of cost-cutting targets. She cited her audit of the tax collection agency, which revealed that 5,800 employees and contractors owe nearly $50 million themselves. OMG. The lawmaker also called for Doge to act as the Grinch on the government's end of the year use or lose. So what happens is, let me stop and explain that. The government's fiscal year is September 30th every year, and they have to spend the money that was budgeted for certain projects or they'll lose it. It'll go back away from that particular department. And so they have a spending spree that they call Christmas in September. The senator said that September 20th every year marks the deadline for the federal government to spend money left over at the end of the fiscal year. Now, listen to this. In the rush to use it before they lose it, $53 billion was recently spent in a single week. The September spending sprees of the past included impulse purchases on $4.6 million of lobster tail and crab and $2.1 million for games and toys, including nearly $12,000 for a foosball table, the letter read. Are you all getting this? Can you see your empty pockets? Can you see at the end of the year the money that you're writing a check to the Internal Revenue Service? Can you see this? Additionally, Ernst cited billions of dollars of unspent COVID funds for potential savings. The lawmaker included in her lengthy cost-cutting list United Nations payments and what she described as bogus bonuses and welfare checks for politicians with presidential ambitions. Okay, what does that mean? There's bogus bonuses and welfare checks for politicians with presidential ambitions. So our money is being siphoned off for not only waste like foosball tables, but for people to enhance their political careers. I'm getting hot now. Meanwhile, Representative Ro Kahana, Democrat from California, on Monday pointed out that Musk and Ramaswamy will serve as outside government advisors who will provide recommendations to the cost-cutting panel, but Congress ultimately appropriates federal money. Now, why was that even necessary to say? We already know they're on the outside, and we already know they don't have control. So is this bucking up against the spending spree or bucking up against what Musk and Ramaswamy are going to start bringing up? And how come these things haven't been looked at and taken care of before this Doge committee from the outside was created by President-elect Trump? Kahana further suggested that there could be bipartisan collaboration on the defense budget. There has been tremendous reporting on the waste, fraud, and abuse in the budget. The Pentagon hasn't passed an audit and has failed the last 6 or 7 audits, Kahana told CNN. So why not correct this before? They knew that 6 or 7 years of failed audits and nobody's done anything, yet they keep picking the regular people's pockets. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene was chosen to lead the Doge subcommittee in Congress within the House Oversight Committee. Greene said she can't wait to start working, adding that the Doge subcommittee will expose the waste and bring truth and transparency to the American people. She recently outlined a proposal to fire government employees. Greene said employees in the private sector are normally fired if they fail to do their jobs, whereas bad employees in the government are somehow protected. She said that her subcommittee would work to dismiss government career bureaucrats and provide transparency to Americans through public hearings. There are 438 federal government agencies and sub-agencies, Greene stated on X. The federal government is the largest employer in the United States. The federal government is in debt nearly $36 trillion. And all of this is funded by the American taxpayers. It is truly shocking that the American people haven't torn down the government yet. And this is from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Meanwhile, Ernst, which is that senator from Iowa, wrote on X that she has spent 10 years in the Senate in a lonely fight to address excess federal spending and is now looking forward to working with Musk and Ramaswamy to eliminate trillions in waste. So the to-be-established Department of Government Efficiency, the Doge, has already begun to eye possible cuts to the federal budget. In a series of posts on X this week, the official Doge account, which if you go to X, they have an official account where they're putting information out. This account published examples of what it called a waste of taxpayer money. Federal government agencies are using, on average, just 12% of the space in their DC headquarters. We talked a little bit about that earlier. A Thursday post reads, the Department of Agriculture, with space for more than 7,400 people, averaged 456 workers each day. That's a 6% occupancy rate. Why are American taxpayer dollars being spent to maintain empty buildings? That's what the Post said. Citing a report published in July 2024 by the Congressional Budget Office, the Doge said that the agency identified authorizations of appropriation that expired before the beginning of fiscal year 2024. It says in fiscal year 2024, the U.S. government provided $516 billion to programs whose authorizations previously expired under federal law. Okay, let me unpack that. So in 2024, they spent $320 billion that their programs had expired. Their authorization for those programs had expired more than a decade ago. And what I see in my head is, just a large swimming pool full of money, and all these people up in Washington just swimming in this pool, and we're sitting on the edges just throwing our money in it for them to swim in and use. And this is crazy. And I'm going to say that again. I got to wrap my head around the fact that they spent $516 billion on of money that was earmarked in previous years. And the authorizations for these previous projects had expired. Some of them had expired over 10 years ago, and they're spending that money on what? So let's move on. On Tuesday, the Doge criticized the Pentagon for not being able to fully account for $824 billion and for failing its seventh annual audit in a row. What in the world is going on with the Pentagon and this money? There are ideas out there, but I won't voice them right now. The department on Monday posted a video of Senator Rand Paul outlining examples of wasteful spending of taxpayer money. According to Paul, one example is the allocation of $100,000 to study if tequila or gin makes sunfish more aggressive. Somebody took $100,000 and gave it to their probably relative, friend, somebody, to have a tequila and gin runoff to see if sunfish are more aggressive if they're given tequila or gin. That's the money that comes out of your paycheck, or the money, if you're a business owner, that you're writing a check at the end of the year or every quarter to the government. For what? According to the latest figures from the Treasury Department, most of the revenue, listen to this, most of the revenue that the U.S. government collects comes from contributions from individual taxpayers, small businesses, and corporations through taxes. The combined contribution of individual and corporate income taxes totals $181 billion. This represents 55% of the total revenue in fiscal year 2025. The data shows that the federal government largely depends on taxpayer money to run its agencies and programs. However, according to a survey by Gold Banking Rates, listen to this, more than half of Americans don't believe their tax dollars are being spent effectively. Really? Listen to this. Compared to nearly 18% of the American people who do think that the tax dollars are being spent the right way. Really? And nearly 27% of the American people said they don't know how their tax dollars are being spent, the poll says. We are truly a nation of sheeple, or at least half the people, because you got all this money coming out of your pocket, and unless you're just filthy rich with stupid money, you should be paying attention. And even then, you should be paying attention to how much money is going out of your pocket for tests to see if tequila or gin makes sunfish more aggressive. President-elect Donald Trump is tapping billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, as I said, to head this Doge. According to Trump, Musk and Ramaswamy will be responsible for large-scale structural reform, focusing on dismantling government bureaucracy, slashing excess regulations, and restructuring federal agencies. The pair will lead a team to identify and weed out what they called massive waste and fraud in the annual $6.5 trillion government spending, according to Trump. I'm really, really hoping that this works out. I'm really, really hoping that organizations, people, Congress, Senate doesn't buck up against it. But I think at least a lot more exposure has will be coming towards the waste that is our government. And I know that Ron Paul and Rand Paul over the years have been annually exposing the government waste. And this senator from Iowa, Joni Ernst, says she's been doing it for 10 years. But the characters of Ramaswamy and Musk have a lot more visibility than these other people. And maybe people will start paying more attention to what the government is doing with the money that comes out of your paycheck. It's no wonder people don't want to give money to the government. This is what they do with it. And we're struggling. We this economy here in the end of 2024 is just as bad as I've ever seen it. People are trying to hold on to their money and they don't want to have, $8,000 that came out of their paycheck and then look at this video and find out that it went to foosball tables that were $12,000 and idiotic stuff like this. So I want you all in this tribe to pay close attention to what this Doge is doing. Just pay attention to the exposure of what's going on with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't care whether you like them or not. I want them to do the job that he's tasked them to do, which is continuously expose what's going on. But I think that with exposure, things could change. I'm not holding my breath, you all. Well, as I told you before, my life doesn't depend on what a Democrat or a Republican or any of these, people do. I know that they don't have our best interest at heart. It's enough for me to know that so I can move forward and do what I need to do for myself and my family. In the meantime, continuing to teach you all to look at what they're doing and make arrangements for yourself and your family to try to thrive in 2025.